I was removed from my home with a piece of paper. I had till 10 o'clock that night to go in and collect any personal belongings that I could collect, basically in garbage bags, and vacate the house. Leave my family and home behind and move out onto the street. I was working at Saskatchewan Finance on a work placement, and I'd been there about a month. It was something that I lined up through unemployment after going through a pre-employment program, and it was just a temporary thing, but it was a 3 or 4 month project that they had going at the time, and everybody was good. I had a good supervisor, a good manager. The employees that I worked with were all good people. It was a real nice environment to work in. Yeah, 2 kids. At that time, my son was 5, my daughter was 3. I was, living with an abusive woman, emotionally, verbally, physically. January 1st, we had a bit of an argument, and it wasn't really a serious thing, but it did turn into, more of a serious thing. And part of it was about my daughter that I had when I was in high school with a high school sweetheart. And this daughter of mine was turning of legal age to search for me through social services because she was put up for adoption. So I had just mentioned to my wife at that time that this daughter of mine may come looking for me. She wasn't too happy about that, but even though she had one that found her illegally or didn't go through social services, but he had tracked her down, and they had a reunion, and it was bad. It was bad. She ended up in the hospital with a breakdown, but so she, she got a bit upset about that, and then we talked about other things that weren't really great in our relationship, and just trying to smooth things over and stuff. And I remember asking her to, because she'd for quite some time, we had bought a van, a nice little caravan, and she would always just jump in it in the middle of the winter and drive away, wouldn't even leave it warm up for 30 seconds. And I remember asking her if she would, try to let it warm up for a few minutes, and that upset her too. Like it just didn't matter. Whatever I did, said, or whatever, she just couldn't reason with her. Anyways, that evening she got upset with me, and as she had done before, went into the bedroom and started throwing my clothes out of the closet, and was telling me to get the fuck out of the house, screaming top of her lungs. The kids were no, they were in bed actually. Yeah, okay, that was the evening. They were in bed, yeah. And that evening she went in and freaked out, like I said, into the bedroom and started throwing my clothes out of the closet, which she had done many times, and told me to get the fuck out and wanted me to leave. And I said no, I had no place to go, and that this house was as much mine as it was hers, and that our children were, as much mine as they were hers, and that I wanted to stay. And she just kept freaking out, and she approached me, and we were in the bedroom, and my clothes were all over the place, and she was still throwing them up, but she came up to me and she started pushing me against the wall, and I fell backwards onto the bed, and I remember getting up and deking around her and trying to get away from her, and I went into the closet and I just started throwing her clothes out and telling her to get the fuck out. And I don't know what triggered, but she stopped immediately. It was amazing. I don't know, I still don't know to this day why she stopped, but she just stopped everything and proceeded to pick up her clothes and stuff. And we both picked up our own items and put them away. She went to bed. Then I remember leaving the note. That's when it was. I left the note on the counter the next morning for her, and I was apologizing, and just asking her to please let the van warm up because it was, it was a cold winter, minus 30, 35. And she came out of the kitchen with this note and just told me I could shove it up my ass. And we managed to, I don't know, spend part of the day together. I remember we went skating to the community rink. We lived in the south end of the city. Took the kids over, walked over in the toboggan, pulled the kids in the toboggan, went skating for an hour, and it was New Year's Day. Came back home. This note that I had written to her, I was pretty upset when I wrote it, and I don't remember all the details that I had put into it, and I knew that our relationship, our marriage was on the rocks, and I knew that she had been talking to lawyers because she had talked to a lawyer even before we moved to Regina a few months earlier. So I wanted this note back because I thought there was maybe something incriminating in it. So I went into the closet and I proceeded to look for it, and I found it in her purse. I just flipped her purse open, and there it was. So I grabbed it, shoved it in my pocket. She came after me and was trying to get this note away. And I backed into the corner by the front door and was just trying to protect myself and holding my pocket closed. And she started ripping at me and stuff. And I got around her, and actually before that, she picked up the phone, and I asked her who she was calling, and she said the police. And I said good, because I want to talk to them too. And she had the cordless phone. So then she dialed a number, who she denied later that it was the police. But so I went downstairs to get on the extension, and she followed me down, and the kids followed her down. She took the phone out of my hand and slammed it down. I took the phone out of her hand, the cordless, and dialed 911. I didn't hit redial, and the police officer answered, and I said, help, my wife is attacking me. And she was at this time attacking me. She was scratching the back of my neck and ripping, and I was trying to get away from her. And the kids were right there, and they were both crying and upset, and I did get away from her, and I just said to the police, help, my wife is attacking me, and I hung up the phone, and I ran into another room, and she grabbed one of the kids and scooped her up, our daughter, and took her upstairs, or proceeded up the stairs. I took my son's hand. She had him by the hand, and she let go of him. She stopped at the front door, and she put on a pair of boots, and that was it, and ran across the street. It was January 1st, 30 below out. Ran across the street to the neighbors, didn't have a coat. No, she stopped to put a coat on. That was it. No shoes, nothing on our daughter, and ran out the door. Anyways, she phoned the police from across the street, and they showed up, and Mobile Crisis showed up, and I thought, this is it, I'm skinned. As it turned out, the police, left. They interviewed her and me, and then they left, and then Mobile Crisis came in and took over, and they were up and down her like crazy. I couldn't believe it. I thought I was the one that was going to be in serious trouble here, but they were just picking on her and for the things she was saying and doing, and she wouldn't commit to any counseling with me, and she told them because she thought somebody would validate me, or she was scared somebody would validate me. Anyway, she ended up not saying much anyways, and Mobile Crisis just told us to not discuss anything more that day, and prior to that, though, we had arranged to have her sister come over and pick up the kids so we could try and deal with it. So we went over to pick up the kids again, and on the way back, she said to me that I'd framed her. And I said, what do you mean? She said, well, you framed me. You caused all this. And I said, well, you called the police, and you attacked me. How did I frame you? I still don't know what she meant by that, but anyways, I went to work the next day. I was just starting actually this new job on January the 2nd. That's what it was. I started January the 2nd, and I was in there for 11 days. And during that time, she had gone to a women's shelter. She had taken the kids out to her sisters in Radville, or Mydale. She was in a women's shelter, claiming that she just needed someone to talk to. She'd come back and see me at work a couple times, and once to get the van, and once to, just to try to talk things over. Oh, I'm sure she told them I was abusing her, or they, with the help of her or whatever, came up with this crazy story that I was abusive. Yeah, so January 2nd I started there. January the 11th, and I had been talking to her, and she was going to a counselor. She'd seen a counselor down at mental health clinic, and I was talking to her in the evenings on the phone and stuff a little bit, and she was pretty upset, just claiming she needed somebody to talk to about things. And January the 11th, I was at work. It was about 4 in the afternoon, and I was on a different floor dropping off some documents, and I came down the elevator, and I turned into the doorway of the department where I worked, and there were 2 police officers standing at the reception desk. And the receptionist said, "Well, there he is there." And they turned around, and I didn't know what was going on. So they asked me if we could step outside by the elevators, and I said sure. So we went out to the elevators, and they served me with an emergency intervention order. The order had my name and my wife's name on it, my address, my children's names. It said that I had till 10 p.m. that night. Actually, it was January the 12th. Come to think of it now, January the 12th. Had till 10 p.m. that night to return home to remove any personal property, and then I had to leave the keys for the house at the house, and that I had to go back. Actually, the order didn't state this, but the police said that I had, I could go back and remove personal property, whatever I could carry out, basically in 2 bags. And I had to go back with a member of the law, meaning like a police, member of the law society or whatever. So and then they left, and I was stunned. I was just stunned. I couldn't understand what this was all about. I was the one that had been attacked 11 days earlier, and the funny thing is that I was, when I moved to Regina, I was in a group. I was facilitated by a psychologist at the U of R, and it was it started out as a support group for anybody, and when I was there, it was mostly men. It was all men actually that were there, and we talked about anything and everything: abuse, home situations, children, our parents, whatever. And I remember talking. There was a lawyer there, and I remember asking him if I could be removed from my home for no reason at all. And he said, "Well, no, not unless you're threatening to hurt your wife or you're hurting her or something." And I said, "Well, I'm not doing that." So I was pretty confident that I couldn't be removed from my home, and I was wrong, dead wrong. I threw my 2 bags of clothes, and I took my alarm clock and some toiletries, and I threw it in my van. I had a little Toyota truck, It was January the 12th. Colder than hell. I drove around for a while, not knowing where to go. You know, I ended up in a motel. No, I couldn't afford a motel. I didn't know where else to go, and you know, I didn't phone anybody because I felt ashamed. I felt that, you know, that nobody would understand what was going on, and that, you know, other than maybe my family would understand, but I just felt ashamed to call them. And my manager actually was quite upset that the police came in there and served me with this.
Upset you?
No, he was upset at the police. But when it came down to it, my supervisor was the one that laid me off. You know, we were just starting with this. It was a farm fuel rebate program, and it was about a 3-month project, and that's basically what they had hired me for. And we were just getting things set up. We'd set up the building, and because they had leased some space, and setting up some desks and computers and stuff like that. And my supervisor felt that he wouldn't be able to count on me because of what had happened, and I guess obviously he had more insight into what was going to happen as far as divorce proceedings and that kind of stuff. So I was laid off. I was let go immediately. I ended up on welfare, actually. My unemployment had run out not long after that. I ended up at my sister's place. I stayed there probably about a month. It made me feel like a teenager again, that you know, I wasn't able to look after myself. I had nothing. You know, I had 2 bags. I had no place to go. I had no money. I had a Toyota truck with an empty gas tank, and you know, I stayed there with her, and you know, I borrowed things off of them. Things that I didn't get out of the house that I needed, and I stayed in their basement. I didn't see my children for, didn't speak to them or anything for 9 days. I don't know what went through their minds. I just disappeared as far as they were concerned. I was probably closer to my daughter than I was to my son, just because of an incident that happened when she was a baby, and I had to start her on the bottle feeding. So I became, you know, her primary caregiver at that time because my wife was in the hospital. I went and talked to this lawyer that was in this group with me, and he wasn't familiar at all with this document, this intervention order. It was a brand new thing. It came out about a year prior to me being served on it. He suggested I find a different lawyer. So I contacted another law firm, and this was within a couple of days. And I remember going up and seeing this. He was just a young kid too. I paid him $150 to write up an appeal to this, a notice of motion and appeal. And it took about an hour and a half, and I went to file it in the courthouse, and it was all wrong. All the documents were wrong. They told me this is wrong, that's wrong. It was no good. I wasted $150. It had expired, yeah. I wasn't able to overthrow it or anything. It was set for 30 days. It ran its course. It became basically irrelevant because it wasn't long after this. Within a week, I was served with a divorce petition and a whole bunch of other stuff. It started everything off. It was a way to get me out of the house. And it was a real dirty way because there was nothing that I did wrong, nothing at all. You know, the social worker that helped her apply for the intervention order was from the same, worked at Mobile Crisis. I mean, there was a file there already that had been started. that she neglected to look at. It showed that my wife had attacked me, and the police were called out, and there were scratches on my neck. My shirt was ripped. I mean, the report's right here. It says all that. And despite that, I mean, this social worker from Mobile Crisis still went and applied to a justice of the peace over the phone, I assume. That's generally how these are done. Jan Thorson, Archambault.
Okay.
Justice of the Peace number 2782. They were very, very excited. They were happy to see me. My daughter just clung to me. My son, they both just clung to me. I got a picture of them just sitting on my knee with their arms, and they were just hanging on me. And they were so happy to see me. Because I don't know what went through their minds, because I disappeared as far as they were concerned. I was there one time and then gone after that. It took a while to work its way into the court system, the divorce proceedings. I saw them again once after that, supervised at another brother's place. I think it was a week later, for another hour or two. Well, by then we had gotten into the court system, and
it was like a rush to a divorce?
Yeah.
Did you get a sense that they were trying to shove it through the system quickly?
Oh yeah, for sure. So I ended up with alternating weekends, and one evening a week for 2 hours with the kids, and that went on for a year and a half, probably, until we got to a trial. I was given interim joint custody, and I remember that summer I ended up with only 1 week holiday with the kids. Saskatchewan's Victims of Domestic Violence Act.
And who was the victim in this relationship of domestic violence?
Certainly not my wife. Certainly not her. If anyone were victims, it were my children and I. She used to spank them and attack me on a regular basis.
Well, how do you suppose somebody using the act, the Victims of Domestic Violence Act, how do you suppose they could convince an official or a mobile crisis social worker that they are the victim and you are the abuser?
I don't think it took much convincing. I think these social workers from Mobile Crisis are fairly biased. They are there to, in my view, destroy men, destroy marriages, destroy homes, as are the women's shelters.
You say your wife had been to a women's shelter?
Yes.
More than once?
Yes. As a matter of fact, she went to one in Saskatoon, and we lived there.
Was she ever abused by you when she went to those women's shelters?
No.
Did they ever look into that to see if there was any truth to it?
No.
Nobody interviewed you in those matters?
No.
Were charges laid?
No. She went there shortly after, in Saskatoon, after she attacked me one night. We'd been out drinking. And these attacks came all throughout the marriage. But we weren't even married at this time. But we'd been out drinking with some friends, and we went back to my place, just her and I. And she was living with me at the time. And I'd already proposed to her, asked her to marry me. And I was laying on the floor, and we were listening to music, and she was sitting on top of me. And I was pretty drunk. And I think she was feeling no pain either. But I just said to her, I don't think you should marry me because I can be an asshole sometimes. And she just started going wild. Started slapping me, backhand, forehand. And I couldn't believe it. And
was her response to you basically saying you didn't want to marry her?
No. That was her response to me saying that I can be an asshole. She kept saying, "You're not an asshole. You're not an asshole," and just kept slapping me backhand, forehand, and And she was, she's 5'8" and I don't know, 140 pounds. I struggled to get her off me, and I used to work at a warehouse, and I was in pretty good shape. I did a lot of lifting and stuff, but I still struggled to get her off me, and I pushed her back onto the couch, and she was just nuts. And I slapped her once, and I said to her, "You want to get rough? How does this feel?" And she just stopped immediately. Just
how were you raised with regards to women, as far as how you treat women?
I was raised old-fashioned. You don't hurt women. You don't hit women. I never ever saw my father, my parents, period, strike each other.
So how do you feel about this notion that it's men who are violent in general?
It's garbage. It's garbage. I mean, I think back, and typically what I would see, even as a child, that women would more often hit men than men would be hitting women. I don't recall as a child growing up ever seeing a man hit a woman, but I certainly would see women slapping men. I've pounded many doors, and the bureaucrats, the whole system, they just ignore you. They listen to you, but they don't want to help. They frustrate you. They tire you out, hoping that you'll give up and go away. And I wrote letters to politicians. I wrote many letters to the Minister of Social Services, who is now the Premier of Saskatchewan, Lauren Calvert, and he basically told me that male victims don't rate. There's not enough of them to warrant any kind of services for them, and that majority of the victims of domestic violence were women, and that's where the money goes. It's a cookie cutter process from what I have gathered. I've talked to a number of people, from victims to the people in the process that do the actual. And it's like I say, it's just a cookie cutter process. They do a checklist, and it's a pretty fuzzy looking checklist. Yes, no, yes, no.
Have you ever heard of anybody following up on the statement of, say, the female victim, alleged female victim, to investigate whether or not she's been telling the truth?
No.
So you are not aware of any perjury charges against any women for making false statements at mobile crisis or the police or anything like that? Anybody brought any of that forward to you at all?
I tried, even having it investigated. I talked to the police and said it was all false. I was willing to take a lie detector test even, and they simply didn't want anything to do with it. There was nothing they could do. They told me that it was in the court's hands, and that's who had to deal with it.
Are you aware that acts like this are written in other provinces, and that in some of them, right in the act themselves, it says, if anybody knowingly lies in giving a statement to arrange one of these orders, can be prosecuted?
Well, I certainly know that they are in other provinces. I think in most provinces they are a mirror of this exact act. I think Saskatchewan was one of the first to pioneer this act, and since then other provinces have followed suit. But I don't know if those exact words. I mean, at the time, I did read that act through and through, and the regulations that accompanied it, and yeah, like I say, I tried to get something done about it, investigated, and I even tried to appeal it, but it got lost in the court system through the divorce process, and it basically ran its course. And
have you taken any other kinds of actions? Other government agencies made complaints?
I complained to the Justice Department. I complained to
Human rights?
to the Human Rights Commission. Yeah,
What did you do with the human rights? What kind of a complaint?
I filed a complaint with them, stating that this was against my rights to be falsely removed from my home when I had done nothing wrong.
What did they say?
They dismissed it. They, within a day or two, contacted me and found no grounds to investigate or do anything about it. So, and there was nothing more to do with them because they're useless as far as I'm concerned. I've done filed other complaints with them, and just got the wrong plumbing. If you're a man, they don't want to deal with you down there. At times I feel embarrassed to be a Canadian. We're pathetic. The government's pathetic. They don't listen to people, the people that vote them in there, but I think it's a huge violation to be removed from your home, to be accused of being an abusive person with no evidence, with nothing but allegations and lies, and that's basically what it was in my situation. There was absolutely no... Actually, I had more evidence that I was a victim, but it didn't matter. The stereotype was that men are the abusers, and still is that way. That majority of men are abusers. I think that there's a long ways to go yet in order for all victims of abuse to be treated equal, and for all victims to be helped when they are victims, are real victims. For me, there was no place to turn. My only support was advocating. It's the only thing that kept me going. Advocating for justice at the time, and try to get help for people like me, because for other men, because there was no place for me to go. I could have gone, I guess, to the Salvation Army was one suggestion.
Who suggested that?
Someone from the Justice Department suggested that I contact Salvation Army, that they were a cheap place to go. No, actually, it was a women's shelter. I phoned a women's shelter, and they suggested that maybe Salvation Army, because they were cheap, or the YMCA, they charge $12 a night or whatever to stay there. And I said, well, I don't have any kind of money to be, I don't have money to go anywhere. And I didn't, because my wife had cleaned out the bank account, a joint bank account, and was living in the house, and I was unemployed, and like I say, I ended up on welfare. But there needs to be something seriously done, whether somebody sues the government in the situation when they're put into this situation, because it's a huge violation of anybody's rights to be wrongly accused and removed from their home and their family. I still carry scars and feelings surrounding that whole situation, and certainly doing this has brought back some memories that I've tried to bury. I don't feel safe in my home. I don't feel safe anywhere. I feel that the government at any point in time can come and accuse me, prosecute me, charge me, whatever, with any kind of crime that I haven't committed. After this, after being accused of this and falsely accused, I don't trust the government for anything. I don't trust that they would help me, because they haven't in the past, and I don't trust that they wouldn't try something like this again.